Hi everyone, Charles from The Food People here. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's my great pleasure to welcome co-founder of Piper's Farm, Peter Greig. Peter joins us today to talk about the founding inspiration for Piper's Farm, the core principles of how he and his partner farmers operate, regenerative agriculture, the importance of soil health, the next generation of farmers, and why, in his view, we should continue to farm animals for human consumption. Welcome, Peter. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today in conversation with.
Thanks, Charles. It's just brilliant to be here. It's exciting. These conversations, feel very real now, but for a long time they weren't being had. So it's great to join you.
Great, thanks, Peter. I mean, at The Food People, we're very clear about why we do what we do. We're champions of change, driven every day by our intent to shift the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trends. And this In Conversation With series is all about talking to people, brands, businesses across the food and drink spectrum to find out more about why they do what they do and how, in their way, they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. And without further ado, I think we should dive straight in, Peter, and let me start by just asking you simply, what is Piper's Farm?
I think picking up on what you were just talking about, future trends and disruption, if you like, where we can go that's a better place. We are absolutely all about giving a younger generation of land managers a route to market, giving them hope for the future, because there will always be a real market for food and clothing that's been produced in harmony with nature. And that's what we are. We're building that route for the next generation to get excited about.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, that's hugely inspirational in itself. Can I ask you, what inspired you and your wife as young farmers to establish Piper's Farm? A bit about the Piper's Farm story, because it didn't start where you are now. So perhaps take us on that journey. Where did it begin and why?
Well, in a way, it I suppose is the reverse of what I've just described. We're trying to create, because Henry and I, we'd met at uni, we travelled in Australia and New Zealand, we farmed a high hill farm in the Yorkshire Dales. Wow. But then I went back to work with my dad in a perfect example of industrial food production. Wow. He pioneered it in the 1950s. So the 1980s, I was working with him, and standing in those sheds of industrial chickens, frankly, was like an epiphany. I mean, as a young family, young farmers, we thought it's hell. This is not the way to produce food. At the same time, actually, 1987, I went to the Paris show, incredibly inspired by the French food culture. So we sort of pieced it together from there, but we had to build our own road. We had to have the vision and literally start from a blank sheet of paper, but we were very clear about where we wanted to get to.
And what is that? What is that place when you say where you wanted to get to? Yeah, what can you kind of bring that life? Can you bring that to life for us, I suppose, in what it is that you're setting out to do as Piper's Farm?
Yeah, well, in those days, the vision was very simple. We wanted to produce food that we were happy to feed to our young children. And that's not complicated. As young parents, you have an incredibly deep-seated instinct to look after young children. Yeah. So that was number one. Number two, in West Kent, where I had been brought up as a kid, all the neighbours were small family farms. I would walk up the road 100 yards to Jeff Wicks, who milked 12 Jersey cows, and get our breakfast milk out of the churn. So in the mid-80s, what was stark was the fact that fabric of smaller scale family farms had gone. And that was an alarm bell for us. We felt absolutely certain the way to feed the world efficiently and sustainably is to work with smaller scale family farms. So we moved to Devon where there was still that fabric, and we determined to build a jigsaw which now amounts to about 40 family farms, that is a fundamental building block of Piper's Farm.
And can you perhaps explain a little bit about, I think it's natural in some ways to think about the way you feed more is about going bigger and more efficient. Why? What's the kind of fundamental principle at the heart of actually no, it's about more and smaller? Can you just kind of bring that to life a little bit?
Yeah, I think that the simplest definition of that is, as farmers, we should be driven by output of units of nutrition. There's no point us producing huge quantities of commodity if we've lost sight of nutritional value.
Yeah.
And for us, actually, we refined that slightly, because I taught myself to butcher with a frying pan, and Henry and I connected everything we did on the farm with the moment we put our meat into our mouths, because pleasure should always be the number one objective of people supplying food.
Yeah.
So that's really our metric. It is about producing wholesome nutrition and pleasure, both of which are timeless commodities.
Yeah. I know that a part of what you do is employing regenerative agricultural principles, and I think we all know it's something that is becoming much more familiar, not only within the agricultural and industry, but also the consumer lexicon as well. And from your perspective, can you unpack that a little bit, please, just to kind of explain what that term means for you?
I think fundamentally it's good old-fashioned common sense. So the label regenerative is being applied now, and I suppose it alludes to what we have always had complete faith in, i.e. wisdom handed down through generations is, if you like, the definition of sustainability. But those lessons were learnt by previous generations before food production became industrialized. So there were not the inputs. And so we would say food production and farming should always be done in harmony with nature, using the resources that are available. But critically, it is not extractive.
Yeah.
So industrial food is all about the extraction of carbon in the form of fossil fuels to power the engine room of food production. We believe that is completely wrong. We should utilize and respect the incredible power of nature in farming and food production.
And can you give us some examples of how that plays out in a practical sense?
Well, I think, for example, ruminant animals have a critical place in the sustainability, the biodiversity, the natural cycles of this planet. So let's take photosynthesis. It is literally around us all day, every day. And as farmers, we are blessed with the most incredible power of photosynthesis. So forage, green, growing plants absorbing CO2 out of the atmosphere, taking that down into the soil, not only to produce forage, which can be converted by ruminant animals, but also it is at the same time looking after its environment. It's building soil health. So the unseen miracle, if you like, is soil biology.
Yeah.
In a handful of soil outside at Piper's farm here, there will be many times more bacteria than there are human beings on the planet. And what we need to do is let them work the magic of photosynthesis, because it is an unbelievably cool process, and it does not extract. It works totally with nature. Cool, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So is the dung at Piper's farm different then from the dung you might find at an industrialized operation, as an example?
Yeah. I mean, let's not beat about the bush here. Every one of us has a unique gut biome.
Yeah.
The billions of bacteria in our gut, it's like our fingerprint. It's unique to us. But that population of bacteria in our gut is dictated entirely by what we stick in our mouth.
Yeah.
It then in turn dictates everything about our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, and everything in between. It is precisely the same with a farm animal.
Yeah. We
feed our ruminant animals a forage diet, and that is what dictates the gut bacteria. So the cowpats obviously are welcomed as meat and two veg, if you like, for the billions of bacteria and invertebrates and earthworms and everything that recycle it. If that comes out of an industrial gut biome, that cowpat is toxic to the natural soil, the natural world.
Right. Okay. And when you say forage, just so that we're all super clear, when you say feeds on forage, what does, just clarify what that means exactly?
Well, I don't know. I expect most of the listeners will have seen a cow or a sheep lying down in a field, apparently not doing very much. And that is when they are chewing the cud. Mm-hmm. So their ruminant system, they have 4 stomachs, and their process is about regurgitating what they have fermented. So they'll take a mouthful of grass. They only have teeth on the front, at the bottom. They tear it with that. They chew it with their molar teeth. They put it in their gut biome. They mix it with billions of bacteria. Then they lie down and regurgitate it. Yeah. So as long as they can do that, that is a natural diet. If they can't, and you stuff them full of grain and carbohydrate and cereal, what you're effectively doing is saying that's like a human being living off a diet of white sliced bread.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a good idea.
So we talked a little bit about importance of soil health, and for you, what regenerative agriculture means. In addition to those sort of regenerative practices, what are the other core principles that are at the heart of what Piper's Farm is all about?
Well, we very deeply believe that it is about the people in the landscape.
Yeah.
That rural communities are a vital link in the chain. So our vision is very much about, if you like, a rural revolution. And we're wary of people who say, for example, the solution is to rewild great landscapes. It isn't. It is to embrace the incredible resource of those families who are part of that landscape. We need to excite the younger generation to come home and farm and produce food and look after the biodiversity of that landscape, all in the same canvas, if you like. Yeah. They aren't separate, but the people, they are absolutely critical, and it is a resource which has been trampled by industrialized, globalized food production.
And how about the next generation of farmers? You know, who is coming into farming, and I suppose going on to that, what role are you playing in that? You know, are you sharing your knowledge and you know, with the farmers of the future? What does that look like for you?
Oh, absolutely we are. But I think as a starting point, we often say to them, look, if you can remember what your granddad told you when you were sat on his knee about looking after this bit of landscape,
Yeah,
then just do it. What we are going to do is be right there beside you. We are going to help you implement wisdom and practice which maybe you have heard about, but you haven't actually been familiar with day to day. Critically, so we know in terms of breeds what that involves. You know, we just say, let's get native breeds back into that landscape. We don't want industrial genetics. We want the building blocks of traditional systems of farming because they are in harmony with nature. And then we will make sure that leads to them making money out of it. So strip out cost, make sure they get a fair price for their hard work and for a good product. That then is the basis on which we're certainly helping them, but that builds really solid relationships.
And how do you see the future of food and what we need to do to make it a more sustainable future? Because you know, there's lots of information sources, lots of influences from NGOs, from government, and so on. But what, in your view, do we need to do to make the future of food more sustainable?
Well, we in a way feel that Piper's Farm is, you know, we have ambitions for our system to be the new mainstream.
Yeah.
But it is driven from the bottom up.
Yeah.
i.e., individual consumers will start to realize that the real importance of the food they buy, what they eat. And so what we are helping them is to connect them with those amazing family farms. So it's a short supply chain.
Yeah.
The customer, in making those shopping decisions, is putting cash straight into those smaller family farms. So it builds, if you like, a really strong system, which is very much different from the global industrial system, but that is the way forward.
I think one of the questions is often around the scalability of what we're describing here. And you know, when you look at 68 million mouths in the UK and close on 8 billion globally, can what we're describing and talking about here feed the world, in essence? Can it be done at scale in your view?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I think, quite apart from anything else, this system of farming in harmony with nature is a very positive solution to reverse climate change. So if climate change was the main challenge which we were facing, then it's win-win, because this system of food production is a way of actually reversing it, simply because of the drawdown of CO2. But also, it means that the customers start to respect the value of food. So that is the way to cut incredible amounts of waste that go on currently. So it's about less quantity, better quality food that customers buy, and that is linked to a farming system which is properly sustainable. And that is definitely the way to feed the world.
Yeah, I mean, and so in your view, farming, because it gets a bad rap when it in the context of both human health and climate health. What you're saying is that it is and can be a force for good in that context.
Yeah, definitely. It's not binary. You've got to make the distinction. Industrial farming, the thing that was staring Henry and I in the face 30 years ago, is like a runaway train driving off a cliff. But the system of farming we are talking about is absolutely the way to do it, that means, you know, every piece of the jigsaw can be aligned, you know.
Why, in your view, and I alluded to this in the introduction, you know, do we need to keep farming animals? There's a lot of pressure in media. You know, National Food Strategy said we need to, you know, dramatically reduce animal protein consumption. Why, from your perspective, do we need to keep farming animals for human consumption?
Well, I mean, for millions of years, ruminant animals have digested forage, the fiber we've been talking about, and that is a crucial part of nutrient and water cycling. It's all based around harnessing the energy of natural sunlight, like we're talking about photosynthesis. So properly farmed animals in the right landscape provide highly nutritious food. It's that simple.
Yeah. So what's your, I suppose, advice to consumers and to shoppers when it comes to, you know, buying meat? What is it that, you know, you think that they should be kind of looking out for?
In stark contrast to what I just described is highly processed diets. So that is the other end of the spectrum. So really what we would encourage customers to do is seek out the best quality, simple ingredients and the best quality that they can afford. So these are meat and vegetables that have been produced in harmony with nature. So that's, you know, good for their gut biome effectively, but it's simple components. And to achieve that, they need to ask searching questions of where they get it from.
Yeah.
So whether it's a shop or whether it's a restaurant, just say, I want to know about this ingredient. How was it produced? If I stick it in my mouth, is my gut biome going to say, thank you, this is real food? And those searching questions, if they don't get an answer, just don't buy it. And basically what the Piper's Farm platform is trying to do is give people the next generation, if you like, of access to this sort of stuff. Total transparency, real information, and a real answer to those really important questions.
Yeah. Can I ask you a slightly provocative question, in as much as what's your view then on veganism and the role that it plays in this whole conversation about how and what, you know, the food that we consume, and in the context of the sort of broader issues that are going on in the world of, you know, human health and sustainability and those types of things? What's your view on veganism?
I have felt for the last few years that the vegan movement has played quite an important part, because they have challenged the extreme issues around industrial farming systems. And they, at the other end of the spectrum, have said, you know, we think something is wrong here. We totally agree with them. But the diet that I have just described is about simple ingredients, the balanced diet, eating less but better, and definitely eating less meat, but better meat. But fundamentally, ultra-processed vegan food is a very poor diet for somebody to adopt instead of industrial meat. There is a middle ground that is really where a sustainable future lies for customers and for farmers.
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about Piper's Farm today? We've talked about some of your principles and the journey perhaps that you've been on. It obviously it goes well beyond your own farm now, but can you just bring that to life for us? What is Piper's Farm today?
So now the jigsaw, it amounts to about 40 or possibly more than 40 family farms. The really exciting thing is that it includes a wider range of incredible food from these farms. So now we do dairy, and we do cheeses, and we do breads and pulses, and really good drinks, and some homeware. There's an amazing pottery just up the valley from here, and so we can offer those sorts of products, not only food, but other products from real artisan producers who have passion in what they do. And so that's the way we see the platform developing.
Yeah.
It's increasing the range, and it's making it accessible to a wider and wider number of people.
And where do you, and you started to allude to it there, but where do you see Piper's Farm on its journey of evolution? You know, what comes next? It's clearly a really exciting time, but yeah, where do you looking forward, where do you see it?
We're so lucky, Charles, to have a younger generation driving that front end now. They, like Will, our younger son, he's managing director, and he and Abby, his girlfriend, they have the energy Henry and I had 30 years ago, but also they have renewed vision. You know, they get the whole digital landscape, which is so exciting. So they, I think, will embrace this concept of a digitalized landscape with a new generation of rural land managers and entrepreneurs, all connected with customers across this digital platform. So, you know, it's a fast-moving, really exciting digital world, and it's going to be built just on the foundation that Henry and I created.
Amazing. I'm infected by your excitement and enthusiasm, I have to say. I have one question, and I suppose it sort of circles back round really. And this series is all about exploring purpose and why people do what they do. If you were to sort of encapsulate what yourself and Henry were put on this earth to do, how would you articulate that? How would you bring that to life?
It's interesting how humans all have different natural instincts, isn't it? When I injured myself last week and the nurses were patching me up, I thought I would make a dreadful nurse. But Henry and I love working with livestock. We just, and working in our office, which is this amazing Devon landscape, the hedges are unbelievable. So working in amongst nature is something which really inspires us. And we believe it is something which a lot of people would get nourished by, but they haven't been because of the way the sort of society has gone. So we, in a way, want to bring that incredible landscape into more people's lives, either in the sense of the food that we produce and they can eat, or maybe as part of the local health system or local education.
Yeah.
We really see this repopulation as being an incredible therapy, something of real societal value. And honestly, that brings so much joy to Henry and I when we see that in action.
Amazing. Peter, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours about this particular topic, but I have to wrap up. But that unfortunately, I have to say, in this case, concludes this episode of the Food People in Conversation with Peter. On behalf of us all at the Food People and the In Conversation with audience, thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing the Piper's Farm story and infecting us all, I think, with your incredible enthusiasm. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you, Peter, very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So do join the TFP community for the details of the latest In Conversation with episodes, as well as the latest free to access food and drink trends foresight. Visit thefoodpeople.co.uk and complete your details at the footer of the page. On behalf of Peter and myself, thank you for listening to the Food People in Conversation with, and do join with us in the trends of today and the foresight of tomorrow to shift the future of food and drink. Thanks for listening.